The Vikings renamed it Lambay. AY at the end of the word literally means an island in Danish. So Lamb Island is what it essentially comes from. So you would never say Lambay Island, you would say Lambay. I'm Matthew Jebb, and I'm the great-grandson of Cecil and Maud Baring. My great-grandparents saw an advertisement, an island for sale in the Irish Sea, and Cecil hot-footed it over here in the middle of January, saw the island and said, right, this is something that will be just so thrilling to look after. And so the two of them were, a remarkable partnership. They both saw absolutely eye to eye, not only about natural history, but also architecture. They wanted to build an arts and craft beauty here on the island.
So my name is Seamus Curtin. I am a food scientist by trade, but my job is to build a distillery and start distilling whiskey for Lambay Whiskey. Well, the project itself has been running for a few years. We mature some whiskey here on Lambay. We also use the water, that beautiful volcanic water that comes from the island, to use in some of the whiskies. But now we're going to the next stage of the evolution, and that is the building of a micro distillery on the island itself.
We will see some great plants, but also bird life. So it is the accessibility of the place for seeing these things is wonderful, because there aren't walkers going around disturbing these birds. They are happy to nest in very accessible places. There are no foxes here, there are no stoats or other predators, so the bird life is undisturbed. And you might think this is just a white flower, but this is the sea mouse ear, which is a fantastically rare plant in Ireland. We find it on the sort of middle of the east coast. We find it in County Clare in the Burren. But here on Lambay, you will never see such an abundance of it. And it's one of these odd features of island life. And it means there's just a bit more sort of elbow room for these species that are here. And therefore they appear in remarkable abundance that you just won't see elsewhere. So sea pink is one name, but thrift is the other name they have. But they are, just extraordinary. They're just out in May and June, and they just turn the tops of the cliffs pink, and then the yellow lichens beyond. It's a spectacle of colours. This puffin appears with bright orange feet and a huge bill with stripes of colour, wonderful yellow markings around the eye. And this is a wonderful cliff, because I can remember this all my life. It was one of the easiest places to come and sit on the grass here. And it's a little microcosm of the entire island. Wherever I am, it's quite the favourite in a way. It's, because it's always slightly different. And yet the pleasure to me is, I can remember this from 60 years ago, and it's still exactly the same as it was 60 years ago. And that is a rare thing to be able to see in the world. Something that has stopped the clock in terms of development. Today, we have wallabies living on the island, which came in the 1980s from Dublin Zoo, but they are an extraordinary feature of the island to see these redneck wallabies running about in an Irish landscape.
The distillery will very much work in harmony with the farm itself, and by that we mean that the products that are made from distillation, which are spent grains, the barley that's used, that the residue that's left over will be fed to the sheep on the island. And we also have pot ale, which will be fed to cattle that will come on the island for the winter. There's no bridge, there's no regular ferry service. You have to arrange and charter boats to get on and off the island. The island takes on a life of its own. Weather, the tides, boat availability. We have to respect the life on the island as it is. There is some tourism in the summertime, and we don't want to put too much of a strain on the island's resources. So that's why we distill in the off season. So yeah, it'll be long winters, but it's a fun challenge, and yeah, very much looking forward to it. Every whiskey should have a story, and I think our story is very much worth telling, because we're not going to be a high volume distillery, but what we make is going to be special. It's going to be special in terms of the effort that goes into it, the challenges that we've had to overcome in building this and in operating it, and certainly we hope it's going to be special in terms of how it tastes. So all in all, not a massive quantity of barrels produced, but those that will be very rare and very special.
Cecil and Maud bought the island in 1904. The 16th century fort that sits inside these huge rampart walls that they built, it was essentially uninhabitable. And whilst it was the natural history that attracted them to this island initially, they recruited this extraordinary architect, Edwin Lutyens, who built an absolute masterpiece on the island. And it really is, you know, the three of them, Edwin Lutyens, Maud and Cecil, all saw eye to eye on the beauty of architecture and the wonderful sort of landscape you could build here on Lambay.
And we come around the bend and you can see ahead of us the building where the distillery is going to be built. You can see that it's a very old building. It's what was known as the potting shed. It's approximately 12 feet by about 70, so it's pretty small. As distilleries go, it's going to be at the small end. It was built in the early 1900s. It's in the Lutyens style, so it's quite unique. As you can see, it's not a big building, so it's going to be a bit of a tight squeeze to get what we need in here, but we'll take ourselves out of the brew house and into the still house. It's an old building, but it's actually structurally very sound. It's a tribute to the craftsmen that built it over 100 years ago. Roof is in great condition. We'll put some fire retardant material over it and we'll clean it down. We'll re-excavate and level the floors. We will leave the windows in situ. The only thing we'll do is change out the glass. And just on a detail around that, you know, because it's a protected structure, everything has to be done very carefully. The glass itself we'll be taking out and replacing it on site with lime putty. Part of the challenge of this project is we have to get a distillery that is functional, that works, that starts up when you need to, works efficiently and produces whiskey. We're doing it in a site that's in a protected building in a very special area. So we have to be sensitive about how we go about it. It's not so much an engineering project as a sort of active conservation, because we are putting in, you know, tanks and stills and pipes and heat exchangers and heat recovery units, albeit on a very small scale. So part of the challenge of the project is to get it done right and to keep the fabric and the structure and the integrity of the building intact. We have a good team of contractors, we've got a good architect, conservation engineer, archaeologist, all the people you need to make sure that this is done right.
Yeah, because now it's in the 5th generation of the family, you know, and all of us have tended to be brought here as children, and our formative years we have spent here. So, you know, all of us have got a deep appreciation of what it represents. It's not something that is necessarily something you're boasting about, as much as something that you feel a huge responsibility that future generations and other people can come and admire the skills and the sort of vision of your ancestors and architects putting such a thing together.
The big worry in something like this is the weather. We obviously project plan as best as we can. The weather can turn against you. Tides are predictable actually, but weather isn't. So if we get unsafe sailing conditions, then yeah, that's it, the day is cancelled. But I think from our own sanity point of view, we just worry about the things that we can control.
Lambay Whiskey's been on the market a number of years now, and the micro distillery is an excellent sort of organic growth of it. It's going to be very low impact, so we will have, we hope, a very sort of virtuous system. We're going to try and build into that ways that we can enhance the wildlife, restore the architectural heritage here, and essentially the whiskey will enable us to sustain the island as it should be. Not just for us in the family, but for Ireland and for the world. It is an internationally significant site.
The ultimate to get to here is to have an all-island whiskey, where it's made from barley that's grown on the island. We've got superb water. It's generated with renewable power that comes from the elements in the island, and showcase the island as a closed-loop piece of perfection. To my mind, we'll be able to truly say that we're creating a fully renewable, organic island whiskey that's off-grid, and I don't think there's certainly nowhere in this part of the world. And if somebody else gets there before us, well, fair dues, and we'll settle for being second in that regard.